Every time the camera goes on, I'm looking slightly more haggard. This is Anya Divine here, and we're at the final day. We're in the 100 metre straight of our 5 days of the summer school. Here's Erin modelling, and that's the painting I started this morning. I'm going to continue it now. I was inspired to see your work, Ali, and the purple and yellow. Let's have a look there. Is it okay? I wanted to show you Ali's. Look, you see? See that gorgeous purple? So she's put the paint on and turned it sideways so that it runs away from the model. And then when you look at that in contrast to what's happening here, I feel like I want to inject some colour. You know? So that might happen right now. You can see. And I think often when I'm doing the demonstrations, really, for me it feels most important to pass on a feeling of do what you feel you want to do in a way, you know, more than a particular technique, and just to encourage that sense of freedom as you're working. And to listen to what's called for as well. Listen to, or to, you know, to look, I suppose, yeah. maybe what I need to do really is to steady down and look at what's here and what needs to happen next. Maybe I could bring colour in to the hair, and yeah, because actually the sheen in the hair to me looks like it's not far off that purplish colour. For some reason I'm seeing a little bit of maybe it's mahogany, but it reads to me where the light is falling as something like that a little bit. And we were talking about applying the brush, how the brush hits the page and laying it down so it's almost flat with the surface creates a different quality of mark than so holding it almost parallel to the page creates a different quality of mark than obviously if you were to plant an edge by pressing the edge, by finding the edge by placing the tip of the brush along the edge there. So pushing and lifting, so it's painting itself once, and then when you lift it off, it paints itself again. Like the brush pulls up and paints, and then when it lifts off, the water and the colour flood back down and create a different mark. I think something needs to change here. I don't know if it's exactly that, but I didn't want there to be such a clear edge because I wasn't sure about it. And standing back regularly, and as the day goes on, you might find that you're standing back even more, not less. So you stand back more often as the day goes on. Okay. So those marks now are inspired by you, Ali. The purple. And I can see some of the purple on the other, I can see some of the hair, I should say, on the other side. And so, and I don't really, well, it's gone now. I was going to say, I don't really want a vertical drip there. Let me see, do I want it? No, I don't really. Because, you see, I think the helpful thing about that shape is that it defines what's on the other side of her body, and I don't want it falling down the front. So it's just to indicate the hair that sits on the other side of the face there. And when it's dry enough, maybe even now I'll take a bit of brown, because I think I could do with subduing the colour a touch. And later on I'll put a bit of blue in it so it doesn't read as the same as the skin, but for now it's enough, because I think I want to just put in a touch of the yellow. And over here some yellow too. Just to give some indication of the body. You could even wet the page and then put some water in, put some pigment in the direction, so that things are happening again, like you're not in complete control of. And after lunch, it's nice to expand out the way a bit. That'll be a bit darker there now, where the sleeve turns. Where the arm turns round, it's kind of helpful for there to be a bit of shadow on that bit. So I'm putting a bit of the opposite of yellow, which is the purple colour, into the yellow to create that shadow. And it'll be there as well, kind of where the back of the body stops. and the room behind there begins. That was an attempt to stop the purple from flooding into the yellow too much there. Yeah, do you know what? I'm still kind of undecided exactly what's happening there, so I think what I want to do is just put a thing like that, and then just let the hair be still a little bit nondescript. There'll be somebody on the inside of the window cleaning after lunch. So that girl was trying to get the lime scale off, but whatever she came back with was heavy duty enough to kind of scary, because it was really hard to get it off. Like,
Well, I hope they repair the pipe, because it will just happen again.
yeah.
It was dripping.
So what we're talking about is that there's a pipe out the window that somebody was trying to clean the lime scale off the window, and they've managed it. Just to let you know, because it's a bit.
Well, let's be fair out. That's your way.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, just giving them a bit of context there. Okay, so, and then there again, I put a touch of the purple. It's really just to let things read as the surface that they are. So I just put another touch of purple there again, Paul, is to make that read as hair, you know, because the three together, I think, make it read as hair. Okay, what am I doing next now? Yeah. So I suppose I could go back into the face now that there's been some blues and purples and things outside, and the yellow even. I feel like I can bring in more colour into the face. I'm going to use the 1-inch brush, and I want to bring in some of the cadmium yellow and cadmium red. I think those two together give a kind of, not like an elastoplasty kind of a colour when they're mixed with the white paper, when they're applied over the white paper. And it's that colour that I'm looking to find for where the light changes to shadow. So there. And even just to describe the edge of the brightness, I think often colour warms up as it gets towards the light. There's a feeling of the skin becoming... Evie, your face there looks a little bit concerned. It makes me think, what the fuck? Okay, let's see. Oh, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Take
Are
it
you
all
looking?
in, don't worry.
Erin's thinking with the swearing, now this is a video that's going to be taken down possibly. Oh, all right. Yeah, it's okay. It's not that bright. All right. So I'm going to push the colour up. I think it's okay. I was wondering about the roundness of the forehead, but I think it's all right. And maybe a little bit more. The alizarin crimson can go into explain the lip colour now that I'm bringing some warmth into the face generally as well. And the socket of the eye, I'm putting some green, sap green into that cadmium red in order to bring in a bit more shadow in the eye area. So here where the eyebrow stops and the socket of the eye begins, it's darker than above. So I'm going to create that shape where the eye is going to sit. I want to make a little bit darker colour as well for the upper lid. So the eyelash line here is around there, I think. And I would also use some of that same dark colour to describe the slant of the eyebrow as it comes down. And of course the other side, which is still wet now, so this is dodgy, but I'm just putting a touch there. And remember I was talking about locating the dark of the nostril when you place a shadow under the nose and let it dry. More often than not, all it needs then is just the shape and direction and dark of the nostril, the cavity of the nostril to be the final thing that explains that area. I know it's wet here, but I just want to try and put something more on the other side. So there is a need for care when the paint is wet somewhere that you want to give further attention to. Either be sure that you're not going to touch the wet bit or work somewhere else until it's dry. Because, you know, it's hard going, isn't it? Would you mind turning that off, Paula? It's hard going if you've already found... Oh, it's fine there too. Yeah. I was saying it's hard going if you've already found Did you turn it off and on again? No, it's off completely.
It's off.
Thank you. Sorry. I've got this kind of thing about the tea thing. I think once I anyway, it's hard enough once you've taken the trouble to find something. You want to be sure that you can paint it down clearly. So if it's going to be wet underneath, it's not going to allow you to make a clear mark. So okay. And Erin, your phone is going to go off, isn't it? 5 minutes. 5 minutes left. Are you okay?
We're looking for the cafe.
Yeah, go down to the end of the corridor and around, and you'll see a lift.
Through the door.
Yeah, through the door, straight down to the corridor. We've got a lot of questions about the cafe this week. People looking for the cafe.
Well, I think people are put off because it says keep quiet, therapy going on, so they know.
Oh yeah, they don't want to go in. But it's not meant to be the entrance. They're supposed to go around the gardens to get up to the cafe.
Yeah, well,
That's
we
just,
should have a sign up.
there's more, yeah, there needs to be more.
Signs
would
would
be good,
help
yes.
most people out.
There are a few signs though. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. I need to check that out because we're getting a lot of callers. Right, so there's a shadow underneath the eye here as well that causes it to sit back. There's light in front of it, the light skin in front of it, and then behind, below the eye, there's a little bit of shadow that comes up to meet the upper surface of the lower lid. And then I want to put in the dark of the iris, and I think I will still work with this brush because Paula, it was you asking about that earlier. It made me realise I often do use the corner of the brush, you know, the little V shape of the corner to describe things like even as small as the iris can be described with the corner of the brush placed and pulled up. So I'm placing it and pulling it up and then finding where it meets the eyelash line. That's a little bit dominant, a dark, isn't it? And probably it is a good idea to use a smaller brush for the iris. Or at least at this stage. It's okay to start with the dark and then you can come back in. I'll just push that over too because it doesn't seem to come to a point completely. There's a little bit of manoeuvring. And when I stand back, I wonder whether the iris needs to sit forward. It does, doesn't it? It needs to go forward a little bit more in relation to the eyebrow. So I'll push it forwards a little bit more. Yeah, I think it sits a bit more comfortably further forwards. And so I'm going to shave off the corner of it there as well. And then I think the colour of the skin between the eye and the eyebrow. It's all happening in Kenzie today, isn't it?
It's
The lorry driver.
yes.
Yesterday we had a bandstand kind of thing.
The first day, Sunday, it was as quiet as a mouse. I seem to remember I was able to talk. Anyway,
Yeah, each day has its own
no excitement.
character. Yeah. Well, now I've pulled some water into that, and I think I want to leave it alone for a while and just see what happens to it in the eye. It might seem a little bit nondescript, but that's all right for a while. And seeing as it's wet, I'll just leave it alone. And there are certain anchor points that I did want to locate. Like this strip here is identifying where the shadow stops, and the brightness, the shadow at the corner of the eye kind of thing, or beyond the corner of the eye where that stops, and the brightness of the skin on the cheekbone starts. So I'll just let it as it is. I think there's something of an eye happening in there. And so I'll go back to do, like I was encouraging you earlier, Evie, we were talking about reinforcing the shadows. Once something happens elsewhere, then the shadows in the face can be re-established. So I want to deepen the tones here, now that I've darkened what's happening in the hair. And the neck itself as well could probably be warmed up. Now the colours that I used there were a little bit dull, so I've put in the cadmium red again to warm up the colour in the skin. And I'll print that there as well because it feels like there's an edge to the neck that I wasn't quite getting before. And that same colour, so it's cadmium yellow and cadmium red I've used. And I could just about see some of your ear earlier, Erin. It doesn't matter too much, but maybe could you put, your hair behind a little bit and just because it's kind of helpful, I think, having some skin over there. You're the same, Lynn, from your side you have a bit of ear, so just even printing on a colour that says this is skin is enough without doing huge detail. Yeah, and then there's the cast shadow of the nose onto the skin below it. And at this point it would be really good, I think, to gain distance. Stand well back. And so the eye looks like it could do with more detail once it's dry. What am I doing there? Just wanted to put something in there as well to stop it being so rigid, an L shape. Okay. Oh yeah, I was just going to say, this is fierce long, 15 minutes, but sure enough, there we are. I wonder, Erin, could I just do some bit of dark in the eye and that'll be us finished then? Because I feel like the eye is a little bit nondescript. And so I'll just pull them in closer. Is that okay? Is it in the middle of you? So thanks, Erin. There's just a couple of touches, like one in the dark of the eyebrow. This is ultramarine blue and Van Dyke brown I've mixed together. A touch over there on the other side. And of course we go back and do a touch there, maybe a little touch in the corner. So once you're happy enough for the position, if you're happy enough with the position of things, it's a good idea then, I think, to go back and do the darks once you're happy with the position. So I'm just mixing a little bit more dark because the darkest part of the eye area looks to me to be the pupil, which I can just about make out, and the line of eyelash, the eyelash line that sits almost horizontally for a while, and it kind of drops. I think it drops a bit of a shadow into the top of the iris, but if it was to be slightly thinner, then there's a thin line that drops down to the corner. Yeah, I think even that is kind of beginning to give it a bit more shape. And then I'm going to put a touch of cadmium red into it. See the tone of my voice lilting makes it sound as though each sentence is the last one. This is the last sentence. And finally, I'll make a mark in the middle of it. So this little triangle here is a bit warmer and identifies the inner corner of the eye, I think. And that's all I'm going to do with the eye. And then I'll use the same colour to do the, because that seems to be in the lips as well, that colour, doesn't it? Okay, so there we have it. Thanks for watching. I'll turn this around and we can have a closer look in a minute if you want to, but there you have what I was trying to do with the eyes and stuff. And the same colour in the inner corner of the eye is on the upper lip a little bit as well. So it's finding its way there gradually. And Erin, give us a wave. Thanks very much. All the best. See you next time.